Oh, shoot me. I'm Bob. I'm an alcoholic. You know, I think whoever he was talking about could probably drink. I have a sobriety date, and that is the date from which I've had no alcohol or other things that people like me use to soothe their abstinence. And that's October 31st, 1978. I have a home group, and the members of that group know it's my home group because I have jobs there. I inconvenience myself for Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's very important to do that. It's the Connect the Dots group. We have 4 open meetings a week and 14 panels in the treatment centers, and I'm blessed to be able to do a couple of those every week. And I have a sponsor who knows they're my sponsor. Very important. Because if your sponsor's not sure they're your sponsor, they're not. I mean, come on. You know. And when I say I'm an alcoholic, I'm saying something I understand today differently than I have ever in my life. When I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was 20 years old, and I wasn't even old enough to take a legal drink, and they made me go to these AA meetings. And I would say I'm an alcoholic because I don't want a problem with you. I don't want a lecture from you. And what I'm really saying is my name's Bob, and I don't want to be here, and I don't feel very good. And I'm going to say I'm an alcoholic because I don't want anybody coming at me after the meeting. So I'm an alcoholic. But I didn't believe it, and I didn't even know what I was saying, truly. When I say today I'm an alcoholic, I'm telling you that there was a time in my early drinking when the effect produced by alcohol was so magnificent and so needed in me that I became obsessed with that effect. I lived for it. I remember I was almost 13 years old, first time I ever got really lit up. And you don't know that you don't feel that good until you really feel that good. And it was like, oh my God, where's this been? And I became obsessed. I remember thinking to myself, I want to feel like this the rest of my life. And I tried. But I have alcoholism and I don't know it. And because I have alcoholism, when I start to drink, something happens to me that only happens to alcoholics. It doesn't happen to drug addicts. It doesn't happen to compulsive gamblers. It doesn't happen to depressives. And you can be all of those things and an alcoholic. But when I drink alcohol, it's like there's a switch deep inside of me that only alcohol throws that switch, and it's the got to have more switch. Every drink of alcohol I've ever taken in my whole life has made me feel like I'd like to have another drink of alcohol. And I have no ability to turn that switch off. And you know why I know that? Because I've tried. I've been in trouble drinking, severe trouble drinking, and would tell myself, I'm not going to do that no more. I'm going to stop after a certain reasonable time. I remember one time I was in a lot of trouble. I was sleeping on this guy's couch because I'd ruined my life again. And the night before I had a blackout. And I was a blackout drinker. Man, I'll tell you, I never did nothing good in a blackout. Nobody ever came up to me the next day and said, oh, Bob, you were so helpful last night. I don't hear that. I hear you peed in my kitchen. You know, I hear that kind of stuff. And I was in trouble. And I'm talking to myself. And I'm thinking, man, I can't do that. And so I'm going to go down to the corner bar to meet my buddies because I'm just going to have a couple. And I remember thinking 8 drinks, that's a safe deal, 8. I never did anything too bizarre on 8. That's somewhere north of 12. 8's a good deal. And I'll go down there, just 8 drinks. I'll get this madness off me because I come to, my nerves are shot. I'm in bad shape. But I'll relax my nerves a little bit. I'll be able to get this madness up off of me. And it was a good plan. I remember thinking, 8 drinks, this is good. 8's enough that you can get a nice little buzz without getting in trouble. And I can maybe have a little fun even. 8 drinks. And it was a hell of a plan, I'll tell you. till I got to 7. When I got to 7, I realized there's only one left. I had this epiphany. The epiphany was, oh, 8's a bad number. That's not a good number. 12's a better number. And I got just as messed up and blacked out and out of line that night and full of shame and remorse the next day. And if you would have confronted me and said, you said 8. Yeah, I did. It was the phenomenon of craving, wasn't it? It was the allergy to alcohol that made you go to 20-some drinks, wasn't it? I'd say, no, it wasn't that. Oh, yeah, then what was it? Well, I had 8, but I just changed my mind. I always changed my mind. Alcoholism is the only fatal disease I know of that uses your own mind against you. That's why those of us that die of alcoholism, we don't know what's happening to us. And so I had this obsession with the effect produced by alcohol. And the obsession with the effect produced by alcohol was fueled by this abnormal reaction I have to abstinence. And I don't know that everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous is a chronic alcoholic. I think there's a lot of people that come to AA and they have a terrible drinking problem, terrible. But when they quit drinking, their problem is over. When I quit drinking, my problem begins. And that almost killed me because I couldn't get my head around that because I thought drinking is my problem. Okay, now I'm sober and I feel like crap. Now I'm sober and I'm depressed and lonely and I don't fit anywhere. Now I'm sober and my God, something ain't right. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know that it's alcoholism. I went to psychiatrists, got a lot of diagnoses. Because alcoholism, it's funny, I had a doctor who was in AA for a while, and we used to have this conversation about how alcoholics, because we're obsessively self-focused and self-concerned, we're prone to having hypochondriatic tendencies. I don't know about you, but I've imagined terminal illnesses at least a dozen times in my life. I've rehearsed deathbed speeches that would bring tears to your eyes. And we were talking about that, me and my doctor, who was sober a while. And he said, alcoholics, imagine they have all these other things. And I said to him, and he started laughing. I said, I bet you there's one disease an alcoholic never imagines he has. And he said, what's that? Alcoholism. Everything else, but not that. And why is it that I'm defended when it comes to alcoholism, defended when it comes to AA? Because I got the secret. The secret is I ain't no good without the effect produced by alcohol. I just no good. There's something wrong with me. I don't understand it. But every time I get sober, and I got sober a lot. From 1971, when I was made to go to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, until 1978, when I finally got sober, I was over and over and over again, I got sober. But abstinence feels like I'm doing time. Abstinence is a lonely, depressing state for me. I mean, AA, I'd go to these treatment centers where the do-gooders from AA bring the meetings in, Oh, God, you ruined your life, and now you got to sit and listen to their miracle stories. Makes you want to hang yourself. I'm sitting in these meetings, and oh, God, I don't know what's wrong with me. But in short order, I knew that I got a lot of problems, and I'm in bad shape. But it's not alcoholism. I have evidence that it's not alcoholism because I sit in those meetings and I know how I feel when I'm not drinking. And it's not good. Sokor says we're restless. That you can't get settled anywhere. Just that antsy feeling. I'm restless, I'm irritable, which I don't feel very good about myself. So I only notice what's wrong with people, and it irritates me. I don't suffer your stupidity well. And everywhere I look, I see stupid people everywhere. It's just a gift, I guess. I'm restless, I'm irritable, and I'm crazy, not malcontent. How I can get the thing I want. The thing I want so badly that I know if I have it, I will be happy and I'll be satisfied, and I get it, and the moment it's mine, the shine wears off of it. And I'm always left chronically disappointed and so I start getting diagnosed as clinically depressed because my life, I jack my life up and then it collapses. Like, this ain't it. It's living a life of, oh yeah, this is it. No, that ain't it. Oh, this is it. No, that ain't it. And it's chronic disappointment. So I've been diagnosed as clinically depressed on a couple occasions, free-floating anxiety with panic disorder. One time, I'm a worrier. I'm a guy who I just live in my head, solving problems that haven't occurred yet. I'm just up here trying to clear up the wreckage of my future. I'm just in my head, oh my God, there's a lonely anxiousness. And I'll tell you, I've been full of anxiety to the point where on many occasions where I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. And here's the problem with that and the depression, all that stuff. I have a horrible fear of what you think of me. So I can't tell nobody. And I keep this sickness of my being and my spirit in the shade. And our book, Into Action, talks about more than most, the alcoholic lives a double life. Because I'm obsessed with what you think of me. And so I create a facade. I create this image that I want to put out to the world because, God, I want to look like, I'm not okay, but maybe if I looked like I was, it wouldn't be so bad. Because if you realized how weird I am inside, you're going to start wanting to talk to me about that. And I don't want that. I can't take that. And so I'm disingenuous, phony, I'm miserable, and I become the pretend guy. And I've been the pretend guy before I ever picked up a drink. The guy who pretends he fits, and I don't. The guy who pretends he's okay, and I'm not. The guy who pretends he's tough, and I'm not. The guy who pretends he's not afraid, and I am. And I just cower behind that wall. But then there were those moments, and the first one was when I was almost 13 years old, when I get lit up, and I don't have to pretend no more. I'm okay. And so when I start hitting these bottoms and I start ending up in institutions and places where people are trying to talk to me about my drinking, it's very threatening to me because you're trying to imply that alcohol is my problem. And I'm not stupid. I can go, yeah, I get it. I mean, that's why I got arrested in a DUI, and that's why I lost it. Yeah, I understand that. But on an emotional level, and selfish, self-centered, self-obsessed people like me, we have a tendency to live our life on how we feel. And on an emotional level, alcohol doesn't, I get it intellectually, it's my problem, but it feels like my answer. It's the only thing I've ever found in my whole life that really made a difference. Nothing. 5 shots of tequila, a half pint of Jack Daniels. I've never had sex or a job or a motorcycle or anything that made me feel like that. And that's why everything pales by comparison. So of course I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. And the book says, unless I can again experience that sense of ease and comfort that I'd once found in taking a few drinks. But the problem with alcoholism is it progresses and it gets worse. And what gets worse is I lose the ability of the magic. And as the fun bleeds out of it and the relief bleeds out of it and the freedom bleeds out of it, the problems just come rushing in. And I had a lot of problems. So much so that I don't think I'm an alcoholic because I'm sober and you're sober and I don't feel like you talk about and you look. But also, I got problems, man. My alcoholism hides in the midst of a forest of other problems. And my ego, which doesn't want me to get better, looks at all these other problems and to tell me how my case is different. Yeah, I know I'm in trouble because of drinking and it's in the picture, but for God's sakes, I suffer from depression. For God's sakes, I have employment problems. I have money problems. I have family problems. I had that social anxiety disorder before it came out. You know, that thing where you don't fit anywhere, you know, I had that. I can't hold a job. I can get a good job, and I get some pretty good jobs. But I'll tell you, I've never worked anywhere very long where I didn't realize how stupid the people were there. So I don't fit anywhere, and I'm uptight. I'm angry, but I'm afraid to be angry. Because I've expressed my anger externally on several occasions, and I've got my nose broke once. I mean, you know, so I just stuff it inside me. And I just swallow it. And I don't know what's wrong with me, and I enter into late stage alcoholism, and it's really horrible. Late stage alcoholism is like paying very high rent on a house that already burnt down. You know, I'm paying the dues and the consequences of my drinking now are extreme. But the fun is gone. See, at the end of my drinking, I don't get free anymore. I remember this, the last 2 to 3 years of my drinking, it really turned on me. The last 2 years especially was bad. And I was in this halfway house in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and I'm sober a little while. Like, you know, did you ever get to that point where you're sober about as long as you can stand it? You know what I mean? You're just about up to here. I've been not drinking, no relief, day in and day out, and week in and week out, month in and month out. And I got to scrub those pots and pans in that kitchen, and got to go to these stupid AA meetings where people just batter me with their miracle stories against the backdrop of my pathetic life. I just can't take it. I get a weekend pass. Guy I was in detox with, talked to him on the phone. He said, "Oh man, you should come down here." He said, "I found this bar, amazing band, hot women, a pool room on the side." He said, "This is a good bar. This is my kind of bar." And I thought, yeah. Because, you know, when you're sober, and you're made to go to AA, which everybody knows AA is where fun goes to die, and you're made to go AA for a while, and you feel entitled. I mean, I'm entitled to a little bit of fun, for God's sakes, after all this. I mean, I've been a really good sport up to now. And I get a weekend pass, and I go down to meet my buddy. And it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting. And sadly enough, once I started drinking, it wasn't good anymore. But the best part of the last 2 to 3 years of my drinking was the hour before I started. You know, it's amazing. Oh, this is going to be good. And it's not. And I remember I walked into this bar with my buddy, and sober, miserable, sober, but I'm hopeful. I sit down at that bar and order 2 double shots of 100 proof Southern Comfort. Because when you only got a weekend pass, you got to get downtown now, you know. And I don't want to mess around with a beer back. So that bartender brings those 2 doubles and rock glasses. I throw that first one down. You know, did you ever notice how that first drink, if you're sober several months, kind of tastes like hope, doesn't it? Throw that first drink down, double shot down. Throw the second one down. Now I'm sipping on that beer, and I spin around on that bar stool, and I'm looking out over the bar, and something bad's starting to happen to me. And I guess it always happened. I didn't want to admit it. But I'm not getting free. I'm not joining the party. I'm sinking into a depression and a feeling of anxious aloneness as I watch everybody in the bar just laughing and dancing with the girls. And man, these people are lit up and having fun. And I could remember when alcohol did that for me. And it was like a window opened, and I could see a truth that eventually drove me to try to take my own life. The truth is, Bob, this is it. This depressing, pathetic, lonely drinking is the good as it's ever going to get for you. You can drink this stuff till it kills you, but it's never going to set you free again. And when I knew that, I mean knew that, I don't know why I should even continue living, truly. And I didn't end up back at that treatment center. Sunday night, as I was supposed to, I came to it. Monday morning in the county jail, and I was evidently facing a hit and run, DUI, and a stolen car, which I tried to tell them, look, I borrowed it. But they don't listen to that, you know, they just... And I couldn't get out on bail because bail bondsmen want you to have like an address and a job, you know. I don't got anything. And when they gave me the phone calls, I needed help. I needed somebody, for God's sakes. And there was nobody, not one person on the planet that would take my call. That is a sick feeling. And in the middle of that sick feeling was a knowledge that I didn't want. And the knowledge was I kind of did that. The reason nobody will take my call is that I'm just a bad actor. I'm just a guy that's difficult. I'm a guy you can't trust. I may steal from you. You don't know what I'm going to do. Except you know one thing for sure, when I start drinking, I'm going to get drunk. So I'm in that jail cell, and I don't know what to do. I'm so sick. I need to get out of here. I need a drink is what I really need. So I signed up on a piece of paper to go to the A&A meeting in the county jail. I'm not going there for recovery. You got to understand, by this time I knew that AA was a bunch of nice people. Some of you took me to ice cream. Some of you gave me cigarettes. You were nice, very nice to me. But for God's sakes, you don't have nothing for me, because whatever's wrong with me is not the same thing that's wrong with you. I went to AA meeting in the prison, in the county jail, for cigarettes, because I knew the people in AA would have cigarettes. And I get to this meeting where they have this room. They take us off the block, and I get to this room where they have the AA meeting, and I'm sitting in there, and here comes this guy. I know this guy. His name is Woody. I know him. I don't like him. He's one of those AA grateful for everything do-gooders. You know what I mean? Those religious do-gooders that got that book under his arm. You know, one of those guys. Creepy guys. But he has a lot of money. He's a boss at the J&L steel mill. Owns a big house, has a brand new Cadillac. And he used to come into meetings in Gateway and in meetings at Amicus House and St. John, St. Francis. So I was in a lot of treatment centers where he would be one of the H&I guys bringing the meeting in there. And so I went up to Woody, because he always talking about it. He's here to help. Okay, I need you to put your house up so I can get out on bail. And the people in AA are hypocrites. They say they want to help you until you explain it to them. Now he wants to give me a book and help me with some steps or something. I don't want it. I need out of here. I need a drink, for God's sakes. My nerves are shot. I'm depressed. I feel horrible. But Woody won't help. Not the way I want. And I don't like to be thwarted. So I got angry. You don't do things. I can be the most pathetic person on the planet. I've burnt my life to the ground, yet I'll still get pissed off if you don't do things my way, right? And so I started blustering to him about, I don't need your help. I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get in a good treatment center. I'm going to get that Voc rehab money, which was very popular in the 70s. With the Voc rehab money, I can go to college. I told Woody, I said, I could be a doctor or a lawyer. And he starts laughing at me, which is, where's the AA love in that, for God's sakes? You know, he's laughing at me. He's making fun of me. And I would have made fun of me too, because I had hair down to about here and a long beard, and I was dirty. And I was a mess. And he said to me, kid, you're not going to do any of that stuff. He said, you're probably going to be dead before the year's out because you haven't surrendered. And I don't know what he's talking about. I remember, I just walked away from him. He sat in that meeting. So I remember thinking, surrender. Surrender what, for God's sakes? There's nothing left of me. You know, a couple years before, I had a girlfriend, I had a job, I had a motorcycle, I had some stuff. That's all gone. There's nothing of any value inside me or outside me. I don't even know what he's talking about, surrender. And when he said, you're probably going to be dead before the year's out, those words rang with me for a while. Because not too long after that, I got sentenced by a judge to 2 years in prison, and then this 2 years was stayed and set aside, and he put me in a place called the Ark House, which is not really a treatment center. It was the bottom of the food chain for treatment, because all the good places won't take me anymore. I've been there. I'm in a room, 10 guys in bunk beds, all you could smell is ass and feet. You know, one of those kind of places. Bottom of the food chain. And I'm trying not to drink because I don't want to do 2 years in prison. And I'm hanging in there day in and day out, and week in. I'm just till I get it up to here with being sober. And I get this madness that comes over me. And it always comes over me. Untreated alcoholism produces an insanity that's crazy. And the insanity, the madness is, I don't care what's at stake. I got to do something. And I talked myself into getting a 6-pack of Tall Boy Colt 45s, which I thought, just that. I'll just drink that, and nobody will know. Eat a bunch of breath mints. Nobody will know. Won't get thrown out. But the problem with that is, you know, a couple beers sets that switch in motion, you know, lights that thing up inside of me. And all of a sudden, it became so clear that I need a bottle of vodka. I get the bottle of vodka, and I don't know how far into that bottle of vodka I am, but all of a sudden, it became very clear to me, some of the counselors in this place need some counseling. And of course, I get thrown out, and I'm living in the park again, and I'm on this run, and it's pathetic. And I come to, I don't know, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks into this, I don't even know, but I'll tell you, I'm sick. I'm shaking uncontrollably. I come to on that park bench, and I'm grabbing myself, and I'm rocking back and forth like I want to jump out of my skin. I got sores. My gums bleed because I'm not eating. I mean, I'm not against eating. I'm not going to eat up my drinking money. And so I don't eat. And I come to on that park bench, and a doctor that previous year gave me a complete physical in a treatment center. I tried to convince him I had a brain tumor. I wanted to have a brain tumor. Oh my God, if I had a brain tumor, my parents would realize how wrong they were about me. You know, if I had a brain tumor, my ex-girlfriends would come running back properly ashamed of themselves. Oh my God, a brain tumor would have explained the blackouts, the bad behavior, but he comes back after all these tests. He says, you don't have a brain tumor, you don't have cancer at all. You got alcoholism, kid. You keep drinking, it's going to kill you. But it might take 5 years because you're a young kid in your 20s. And on that park bench, I thought about that. And I thought, 5 more years, I can't do this. There's a place, my sponsor, Clancy used to talk about this, there's a place you get to where there is no friendly direction. There's no hope anywhere. There's no hope in the bottle. There's no hope in drugs. There's no hope in changing cities. There's no hope anywhere. Nothing rings my bell anymore. And so I thought about 5 more years of this anguish, this disgustingness. And I made the decision to kill myself, and actually felt better. I felt like hope. Because I'm an oblivion drinker, which means I don't drink to party. I drink to blot me out. And maybe death is what I've been looking for all this time. Let's just get it over with. Let's just do the ultimate blot Bob out. Now, the problem is I'm a coward, and I went to this bridge to kill myself, and I got so afraid. And I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid this isn't high enough. And I'll end up paralyzed from the neck down and lay in some charity ward for 50 more years. And guys like Keith and Jerry would bring their newcomers in there, and I get to hear them say, Bob's what happens to you when you don't find God and work our beautiful 12 steps. And Harold, I can't even give him the one finger salute. And there's a line in our book, because I'm an atheist, so there's a lot of things I can't buy easily here. There's a line in our book that talks about before any of us would ever come to believe in God, to believe in the steps, to believe in AA, believe in any of, even believe I'm an alcoholic. I said, we'll first come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of your life, Bob, as you've been living it. I believe that. If you've been relapsing for a number of years and you have been the guy who's made up your mind and swore to yourself, I'm never touching that stuff again, and you always go back to it, you know hopelessness and you know futility. And if it's a vacant gesture because the party's gone, you know hopelessness and you know futility. And so the book says at that point, if you've come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of your life as you've been living it, that Bob, there's nothing left for you now except to pick up this simple, nonsensical kit of spiritual tools that people in AA have been putting in front of me since 1971. But AA doesn't make sense to me. There's nothing in Alcoholics Anonymous that looks like it will help me. And I thought I was the only one like that, but I've talked to hundreds of people. The funny thing about Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps and the service structure and all three legacies, that they don't make any sense until after you do them. Nobody comes into AA and goes, looks at the steps and goes, oh yeah, that would work, yeah. Nobody does that. I mean, there's Al-Anons that do that as they elbow their mate, but nobody does that. Because Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't look like it works until you work it. There was a great friend of mine who died many years ago, Frank Honeycutt, and he was out of California, and he used to say that recovery is not for those who need it. And my God, we all know people that are dying of this disease that need this, but they don't get it. And he said it's not even for those who want it. And I've done this, and I've watched people do it. They've in tears of sincerity how much they want this, but they don't get it. Because Frank said it's not for those who need it, and it's not for those who want it, it's only for those who do it. But Alcoholics Anonymous is an action program, and thank God, because it's a fair deal now. Because action, if all it takes is action, it levels the playing field. I don't have to become smart. I don't have to be a recovery achiever. All I have to do is do what you guys do. And it's really a program that, oddly enough, connects me with a power that I didn't even want to believe in. You know, I remember a moment, I'd sit in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous for all those years as a relapser, and I'd hear people say that they're sober only through the grace of God. If that's true, then for guys like me that are full of themselves, grace is a very elusive and difficult thing to access. And I think what it is that I am so full of myself, there's no room for God's grace. And so I had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and get a sponsor who started me taking actions I didn't believe in. And what you're asking me to do is you're asking me, Bob, dial yourself down for God's sakes. Get your life out of the hands of the idiot that has been running it. And you're asking me to become smaller. And I don't think that's right. I don't think I have no self-esteem. I need to become bigger. No, you need to become smaller. Because there's too much of me between me and you and too much of me between me and God. And so I started this step process. I remember my first, it was my third, but it was my first legitimate fourth step using the big book. When I got to that part, this was our course, and looking at all these judgments and opinions I've had from an entirely different angle. It's like all of a sudden I'm looking at my parents, who I blamed for a lot of stuff. And I'm looking at it through their eyes. What did it look like to them? I didn't like what I saw. I started realizing how wrong I'd been about my mother and my father and the girlfriends that had dumped me and the bosses that had fired me, because I made cases against you. But when I put myself in your shoes, my God, how did they stay and be in my life as long as they did? Because if the tables were turned, I wouldn't have. I understood why the girls dumped me. What I couldn't understand is, why did they give me a second chance? Because I wouldn't have. And the bosses that gave me, why did they do that? Because I thought the world was cruel and unreasoning and just a harsh place. And the truth was, the only harsh person in my universe has been me. I'm the judgmental guy. I'm the guy that has no tolerance. I'm the guy that has no forgiveness. I'm the guy I'm accusing you of being. And I don't know about you guys, but Harry Thibault used to talk about, we must find ego reduction in depth. And as I did go through that stuff, and I realized I'm wrong about my mother, and I'm wrong about my father, and I'm wrong about the exes, and I'm wrong about the bosses, I'm wrong about the friends, I'm wrong about the police. I'm just wrong. And it's like you're shrinking. I'm shrinking because I'm not all that I thought I was. When I realized that I'm the guy that's the problem. And I had a lot of problems in my life prior to getting sober, and even in many years in sobriety. And occasionally, I may still from time to time. I don't know. There's no guarantee here. But I know one thing: if you send a CSI team into any bad situation in my life, drunk or sober, you're only going to find my DNA and my fingerprints, because I am the source of all of it. And I'm so gifted at making it your fault. Well, if you wouldn't, I wouldn't. I'm gifted at that. I'm gifted at hiding my crap behind anything I can find wrong with you. And that is, I suspect, why I'm so irritable. Because I'm vested selfishly in finding stuff wrong with you to validate me. And so I get to be wrong about a lot of stuff, and the ego returns. It's indomitable. And Dr. Thibault talks, he's mentioned it throughout AA. He was on our board of trustees at one point. And he mentions about the amazing recuperative powers of the alcoholic ego. And I work with a lot of guys that are sober a long time, and they're in trouble, but they don't know what it is. Because the ego, as it squirms back into the center of my life, it squirms back smarter. Now it's got quotes out of the book. You know what I mean? Now it's got an AA resume it can show you. Well, look, I've done all this. Now it's smarter and it's cleverer, and it uses even the things that have changed me and helped me to get its control again, and it scares me. I remember I was probably less than a year sober, I suspect. I was pretty new, and I was having a nervous breakdown. I used to have nervous breakdowns a lot. I'd go to Dick Tucson's office, and I'd be just, by the end of the month, I'm going to be homeless. I don't know if I can stay homeless and be sober. And he'd always dial me down. He'd say, wait a minute. Is everything okay right this second? Yeah, I know, but I'm going to lose my job, and I know it's going to be, yeah, I know. But right now, this second, is everything okay? And he's trying to bring me back to reality, which is someplace I don't like. I visited occasionally because I have to. I don't like reality. He's trying to bring me back to where you are and where God is in the now. And he eventually gets me to concede, yeah, right this second, everything's okay. And you go, oh, that's so good. We got to stop trying to fix problems that haven't occurred yet. Let's stop trying to clear up the wreckage of your future. When it's bad in the moment, you and I are going to have something to work with here. And he always tried to bring me back to, and you know what, here's what I discovered. It's so pathetic, but it's true. All my problems were imagined. Because it's like Mark Twain said, I've had thousands of problems and none of them have ever come true. It's like my ego has to worry me to control me. It has to create anxiety to own me. But what if truthfully, in reality, what if I never did have a problem? It was just the imaginings of an ego that's trying to scare me. You know, in the step 7 in the 12 steps and 12 traditions, Bill says that self-centered fear is the chief activator of all our defects. Fear is the muscle of my ego. You want to get me to lie? Scare me. You want to get me to steal? Scare me. You want to get me to be out of line? Scare me. And I may do, you scare me enough, I'll do things I hate myself for. But fear can drive me to do that stuff. And so, what's the answer? Well, our book only gives one answer. It says, to remind me, Bobby, you gotta remind yourself, you're now on a different basis. Remember that 3rd step, decision? Now you're on the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. And I've had great people in my life that when I'm scared and I'm uptight and I'm crazy, they've walked me back to the truth. That right now things are fine. I had a guy one time, I was early in sobriety, it was my first year, and I was losing my mind. I was in a panic. And I dumped all this stuff on him, and he's so funny. He said something, and all those years in therapy, nobody had ever said this to me. I'm telling him about all these disasters that are coming. I'm a catastrophizer. Because just normal everyday problems are not big enough for a guy like me. You know, I'm a catastrophizer. And so he would listen to me for a while, and he stopped me, and he said, he said, you think you're your mind, don't you? I said, well, yeah, my thoughts, on my head, on my mind. He said, that's not you. No? He said, no, you're the idiot that listens to that crap. And my ego talks to me inside of me in my voice, so I think it's brilliant because it's in my voice. And it wants to control me. You know, the name of this group is Primary Purpose. And I'm like most people who get here, I already had a primary purpose. Me. My feelings, my success, my finances, my sex. I was the center of my life, and I was dying from obsessive self-concern. I'm so focused on me and so obsessed with me and how I'm doing. It's just like I quit drinking. I just get myself on myself, like that creature in that movie Alien that attaches itself to your face. And I start to feel like I'm suffocating. My wife has a great line. I love it when she says it. She says she would go back to drinking because she needed alcohol like she needed oxygen. Yeah. I mean, you're sober 3 months, you take that first double shot of whiskey. We all do the same thing. We all go, like somebody turned the air back on. What it's doing is it's lifting me up off of me and setting me free. Free from the only thing I ever have to get free from, and that's the bondage of self. I'll tell you a quick little story, and then I'll shut her down. When I was, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 years sober, I was sponsoring a guy in L.A., and I was down in L.A. for like 4 or 5 days doing some stuff, and he said to me, he says, I have a panel, I take a meeting into one of the maximum security penitentiaries up in Morro Bay on the coast. It's a couple-hour drive. Would you like to go up there, and give a talk? I said, yeah, man, because I like doing that stuff. Keith and I think, used to go to Indian Springs. I always liked, if I can go somewhere and there's a shot or a chance of being useful, count me in. So I said, yeah. So we drove up there and we're having a great time in the car, you know, a little road trip. Get in there, go through all the security layers. There's a lot. This is a max lot. And we're coming down this hall and you can feel it. You feel it. That's why I go to my home group an hour before it starts. I want to feel the buzz. I think it's God expressing himself through the consciousness in the room. But you can feel the buzz. And I could feel the buzz in that prison. And I get in there and he's starting to show me around, introducing me guys. And most of the people in this particular prison is where California Corrections sends their lifers and their people with multiple life sentences. So he's pointing out guys. See that guy back there laughing with that guy? That's a new official in the yard. He's taking him through the doctor's opinion. See those guys over there carrying on? He said, they're never getting out of here. And I had just been to a meeting at one of the clubs in Las Vegas in a kind of a bougie part of town where there's BMWs and nice cars in the lot and people came from $1 million homes, I suppose. And it's one of those, you ever been to a meeting where they started off, does anybody have a problem? And you could just feel the Al-Anon spirits rise out of the alcoholics. You know, it's just, oh my God, it's horrible. And it's just a whiny horror, like a bad meeting, and everybody's depressed, and everybody can only see the deficiencies and the things that are wrong. And I'm at that prison, and I'm looking at these guys, these lifers that will never get out. And I had this thing where I thought, oh my God, these guys are freer than the people with the fancy cars and the big homes. Because there's only one freedom, and I drank for it, and I do AA for it, and it's freedom from the bondage of self. If you don't have that, you got nothing. Because I drank alcohol because it lifted me up out of me and set me free. And if I can't find that in AA, what the hell good is AA to me? So that's why in 1978, when I got my first sponsor, he was a big servant in AA. He'd been a delegate. He'd involved in the convention. He did the first H&I meetings before there was such a thing as H&I, because he knew, just as Bill Wilson knew when he got out of Towns Hospital, that for him to survive, he's got to find people to help. So he started the first meetings in this detox I was in. And he wants me to do that. Well, I had a therapeutic background. I had a lot of psychiatry and psychology and stuff. And he's pushing me. I'm new. I'm not even out of detox a week. And he wants me to go on the 12-step call list. He wants me to come with him back into the detox. He wants me to sign up for the Gene prison meetings. He wants me to go to reality. He says, help people. And I had to stop him. I said, listen, I hear what you're saying. But don't you think it sounded good too. Don't you think I should work on me for a while? And when I said that, he looked like he bit into a lemon and he reared back and said, work on you, you've done quite enough of that, stop it. And I didn't get mad, I didn't get my feelings hurt. I thought, my God, I have done quite enough of that, haven't I? Primal screamed, Gestalt therapy, rational emotive therapy with Ellis himself, transactional analysis. If it came up on the radar, I took a run at it because I am my first order of business is to make me happy and satisfied. And I failed. And I failed. And I think some of us fail ourselves up to the door of Alcoholics Anonymous. And some of us fail ourselves up to a sponsor. And I did. And my big hope for me and for you is that I hope I never underestimate this disease, this fatal illness that uses my own mind and talks to me in my own head. I hope I never underestimate it. And for God's sakes, I hope I never overestimate myself. Because I've seen a lot of people die from alcoholism. And we slide out of AA on a bed full of ego. And that could be me. I'm not immune to that. You can't be sober so long that you can't get drunk again. And you can't be sober so long in physical years that you're not eligible to suffer so much from untreated alcoholism, you'll take your own life. Happens a lot here. And so I try to stay in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I try to say yes, and Keith contacts me, and I thought, oh no, Keith, not Keith, oh my God, Keith. And he wants me to come over here, and it's only one answer. Yeah, I'd be glad to. If you just send me the address. And send me the address. And Keith, send me the address. And I got it this afternoon. Anyway, I'm out of time. If you're new here, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. AA has amazing good news for the alcoholic. What we have here is truly a treatment for untreated alcoholism. The thing you drank for, you can find that effect in AA. The bad news is the treatment here doesn't work as fast as 5 shots of tequila. Thank you for listening.